first reading is from 1 Samuel. The Lord said to Samuel, "How long will you grieve over Saul? I have rejected him from being king over Israel. Fill your horn with oil and set out. I will send you to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have provided for myself a king among his sons." Samuel said, "How can I go? If Saul hears of it, he will kill me." And the Lord said, "Take a heifer with you and say, 'I have come to sacrifice to the Lord.' Invite Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show you what you shall do. And you shall anoint for me the one whom I name to you." Samuel did what the Lord commanded and came to Bethlehem. The elders of the city came to meet him trembling and said, "Do you come peaceably?" He said, "Peaceably, I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Sanctify yourselves and come with me to the sacrifice." And he sanctified Jesse and his sons and invited them to the sacrifice. When they came, he looked on Eliab and thought, "Surely the Lord's anointed is now before the Lord." But the Lord said to Samuel, "Do not look on his appearance or on the height of his stature, because I have rejected him. For the Lord does not see as mortals see. They look on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart." Then Jesse called Abinadab and made him pass before Samuel. He said, "Neither has the Lord chosen this one." Then Jesse made Shammah pass by, and he before Samuel. And Samuel said to Jesse, "The Lord has not chosen any of these." Samuel said to Jesse, "Are all your sons here?" And he said, "There remains yet the youngest, but he is keeping the sheep." And Samuel said to Jesse, Send and bring him, for we will not sit down until he comes here." He sent and brought him in. Now he was ruddy and had beautiful eyes and was handsome. The Lord said, "Rise and anoint him, for this is the one." Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the presence of his brothers, and the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon David from that day forward. Samuel then set out and went to Ramah.
So how this is going to work is I'm going to have a 4 or 5 minute reflection that I'm going to read, and then we're going to have some discussion questions that we're going to ask. And we're just going to discuss it here, and it's okay to get off track because there is no track. We're making this up as we go along. And so, my reflection is going to be on the first reading, the 1 Samuel chapter 16. So that's on page 3 in your worship guides. So we meet Samuel in our first reading, and Samuel is a man who has had every one of his plans go wrong. But to understand how wrong they've gone, you've got to fill in a bit of the backstory. When Israel first entered the Promised Land, there really wasn't a central government. It was really just a loose collection of tribes. And ever so often when a crisis happened, God would raise up a leader that they called a judge to lead the whole nation through that crisis. Samuel is the last of those judges. But the people were tired of this system of leaders only being raised up occasionally in a crisis. They wanted something more permanent and more official, and so they asked Samuel, "Give us a king." And God said, "All right, we'll adjust the plan." And so God gave them a king, and the person who ends up being chosen as the first king is Saul. And Saul is handsome, and he's tall, and he looks the part. He looks good on television. And at first, Saul does just fine. He's an all right king. But things don't go according to plan. Saul ends up being more interested in his own goals instead of following God's goals. So that brings us where our reading picks up this morning. Samuel is grieving. He's grieving over all the plans that could have gone right and grieving all the plans that have gone awry at this moment. And in that moment, God has a brutally honest question. How long will you grieve over Saul? If we put this in the Pastor Dave translation, it reads this way: how long are you going to sulk? I have to admit that it was simply that question that really attracted me to this reading at first. Because that question kind of hit me like a truck. How long will you grieve? There has been, for me at least, a lot of plans that haven't gone right in the last week. a lot of changes to the normal life of the church, and all of it has required a certain amount of grieving. And God asks, how long will you grieve? So God asks Samuel this brutal question and then gives him his marching orders. Go and anoint a new king. Now Samuel's not dumb. He knows that anointing a new king while the old one still lives is really dangerous. It tends to be deadly. And so Saul is very much alive. And Samuel asks God, how am I going to get around this? How am I going to get away with this? And as Walter Brueggemann says, God's response is, for heaven's sake, lie a little. Basically says, make up an excuse. Tell them you're there for a sacrifice. So Samuel does what he's told, and he goes to Bethlehem, and he uses the cover story, and he gets past the elders of Bethlehem, and then he goes to Jesse's family. And Jesse's family presents his 7 sons. 7 is the number of completion and wholeness. It's a complete number. Things are going exactly according to plan. And we see the first son, and he's tall, and he's good-looking. Samuel thinks this is great. After all, the powerful people are usually always the beautiful people. It fits. It's all according to plan. But then God has this really radical word. God says, I do not choose him. And don't count on his height or his beauty. Basically, it's God saying, we tried it already that way. We're going to do it my way. It's God basically saying, I reject the way the world does business. I reject the powerful and the beautiful. I reject them because I work differently. So one by one, all the sons are rejected, all are ruled out, and Samuel asks if there's anyone else. And Jesse says, well, there's the 8th son, outside the perfect number. There's the youngest son in a world that only cares about the oldest. God doesn't only reject, God chooses. God doesn't only say no, but he also says yes. It's a rejection of the normal way the world does business, and a choosing of a new way. Suddenly, all those who are broken or downtrodden or cast out or left out, they are all chosen by this God. In our very long gospel lesson, Jesus says, I came into this world for judgment, so that those who do not see may see, and those who see may become blind. Jesus is doing the exact same work God is doing in 1 Samuel. Those who think they see get their eyesight checked, and those who are blind come to the front of the line. All the plans get thrown out of whack because of this God, but also wonderful things happen. The first are last, the dead are raised, and with this God, sins are forgiven. And because we're good Lutherans, it should be noted that none of this is because David is so awesome or did the right thing. It's just because God chose him, and that's enough. So that ends my reflection. So now we have 4 questions we're going to talk about. So first question for you two. Where do you place yourselves in this story? This can be anywhere. It can be, you can be with one of the characters. You can be Samuel. You could be David. When you're imagining it, where do you place yourself? You can even be an inanimate object. You could be one of the sheep David is with. Who knows? Where do you place yourselves?
I think I'm Jesse.
You think you're Jesse? So why are you Jesse?
You've got your 7 plans.
Mm-hmm.
How about this one? Nope. How about this one? Nope.
Yeah.
Let's try this. Nope.
How about this guy? No. Yeah, I can see definitely, right?
You just keep trying, you keep trying, you keep trying.
Yeah, definitely, right? I love that. Yeah. Try this one. No. God says no to that one too. Yeah.
I think I put myself in Samuel's shoes because there's a certain amount of looking at the world through your lenses and saying, well, this is my understanding of how things work. surely this is going to be the best way to do things. And then God smacks you over the head with a baseball bat and says, no! That's not how we do things.
Yeah.
Well, what about if we did it this way? No! I've been getting hit over the head with God's baseball bat a lot lately.
Mhm.
So there is certainly a level of trying to overcome your preconceived notions of how the world works and how things should work, and trying to trust more in what God says about how the world is going to work, because He's in charge.
Mhm. Yeah, there's definitely. Samuel always kind of gets me because at heart he's really a grumpy traditionalist, and that's kind of what I am too. And in some ways that's a wonderful strength for Samuel in the story. Like, it gives him this amazing faith that he kind of runs the whole story with. But on the other hand, it gets him into messes kind of like this one, where he keeps trying it a certain way, and God keeps saying, well, we've tried that already, so let's do something else.
They first asked for a king.
Mhm.
Samuel said, well, who do I make king? And they said, well, we like this guy.
Yeah.
God says, are you sure?
Yeah.
He says, well, they like him. Well, we'll give it a shot.
It's like, yeah, we'll try, Saul. Yeah.
Flipping through the book. And
Yeah.
About 5 years, we'll pick again. But
Right.
for the time being, if you really want Saul.
Right, you get what you asked for. Yeah, that's the truth.
And there is definitely a level of, and in my own personal experience, God will let you have what it is that you asked for, if only so that you can find out why you shouldn't have asked for it in the first place.
Yeah. Right. Yes.
Or he'll give you what you asked for in a total different way than you thought you were going to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Technically, I got what I asked for,
That's
but
not what I thought was going to happen.
yeah.
So where does this story hit you, given all that's going on in the world? I talked about how it hit me, but where does it hit you?
It's, like you said, you have a lot of plans, and well, I repeat myself, but it's kind of like you said, you've got plans for how you want things to go, and how you got everything lined up. Like, I'm just a little over 2/3 of the way through the school semester, and had plans for how things were going to work, and I was going to go to Florida with my college church on a mission trip for spring break, but that got canceled because pandemic.
Mhm.
And so I can't claim to see the end of the road, but I can certainly say that God looked at my plans that I thought were going to be good plans and said, no, that's not how we're doing things. That's not how things are going to work out. So there's a level of trusting in the example here. God has a plan in mind. It's not the plan that you had, but that doesn't mean it's not a good plan.
Mm-hmm.
And you just got to trust that it's going to work out. And even if it's not where you expect it to be, you're going to get somewhere that's better off than where you would have been.
Well, that's the difficult part of this story and what's going on now is all the plans that were canceled were good plans.
Mhm.
At least we thought they were good, and we're
Yeah.
doing what God tells us to do. We want to serve others. We want to worship. We want to love our neighbor. But
Mhm.
now we can't even be in the same room.
Mhm.
So even though those plans were good, God says no. So what is He saying yes to?
Mhm.
We need to take a Sabbath, take rest, figure out, is this the best me I can be at this point,
Mhm.
even though we can't do what we thought we were supposed to be doing. So.
Yeah. Yeah, Saul seemed like a good plan. He seemed like a good option. The fact that he
Looks-
wasn't. Yeah.
Looks like a good plan.
You're right. He looked the part. He played the part. It was good.
And
Melanie has shared that plans are always changing. God has this. All things work to His plan of blessing blessings for all of us.
Yeah.
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 Amen.
It's, and another thing is something that I've believed for a while now is the church is a lot stronger when it's being tested.
Yeah.
We can do things the way we've always been doing them, and that there's nothing wrong with that. But when we have to adapt to circumstance, is when a lot of good things will happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, right, that the church faces challenges isn't new, and actually we tend to come out of them better and, or at least stronger for them, you know, and so, yeah, the challenges don't break the church
Of course not.
because it's God's church, not ours. All right. Third and last question, because we kind of talked about my fourth one already, but
Well, there we go.
where do we judge like Samuel judges based on appearance?
Just about
Everywhere.
everywhere.
Just about everywhere, right? It's an easy question.
Are
I
you
mean,
thinking of the elections?
yeah.
Let me think of
Candidates?
Right.
anywhere that I don't judge based on appearance.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's hard to judge the way that God judges
Yeah.
because we can't quite see on the inside the same way that He does,
Mm-hmm.
and it gets us into a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, when I thought about that question, it's interesting because I've been watching shows that I don't normally watch because I'm home.
Yeah.
So the Masked Singer is one. They're
Mhm.
all
Yeah.
camouflaged. You don't know who it is.
Yeah.
And then when you find out who the singer is, you're like, oh, wow, it's not who I expected.
Right.
So same with like The Voice when they're doing the blind auditions. So the people are singing and you can't see who they are.
Mhm.
And they look totally different than their voices. So that is kind of interesting to me. A lot of people that I've met are very different on the outside than what comes out in their voice. So you try not to judge, but
Yeah.
we're human and we do. So
Yeah.
And then there are a lot of people who you see their outside, and even you see the way that they'll sometimes act, and you think, oh, well, this must be a very good person, and then they'll do or say things that, you know, give you a look deeper inside, and it's, oh, you're not at all the person that I thought you were.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Right. I was not expecting that.
Oh my.
Right. Absolutely.
And it comes out in good ways and bad ways, where you'll put trust in somebody because of one or two interactions that you have with them, and then they end up showing you that they're not at all the person you thought they were. And then sometimes you'll see someone and you write them off immediately, and then they come and prove you wrong. And we are constantly getting shown just how faulty our own eyes are,
Yeah.
and how terrible our own
Right.
first impressions can be.
Yeah. Yeah. We've all got really bad eyesight. You know, when it kind of boils down to it. We all need.
We are all wearing glasses.
Yes. Everybody in this room.
Everyone.
Yeah.
A couple of late,
Mhm.
not late, they were perfect in their time,
Yeah.
and late getting to me.
Yeah, that's fine.
Comments from the previous question.
Mhm.
Kathy and Trish have both shared about the impact being, felt especially as their kids,
Mhm.
whether the oldest or the youngest are being forced into the frontline battles of this thing because of career decisions that they made long before
Mhm.
we ever thought this was going to happen, because that was 8
Yeah.
days ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
And not only share, just keep praying that we can see people with God's eyes. So it's a daily, minute by minute struggle for most of us.
Mhm.
it is. It really is.
And thanks be to God, I mean, to that point, that, God keeps, I think you said it, like smacking Samuel over the head with a 2x4, to get him, it's like, and God doesn't give up on Samuel, and He doesn't give up on us. It keeps reminding us and keeps pushing us.
And I think we learn more from the no's and the yeses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you said, when we're challenged, that's when we have to change something. If it doesn't change you, it probably wasn't really a challenge to begin with. So
Yeah.
you gotta reflect on those no's and the yeses. I know it's hard in the moment, but
Yeah.
now that we have so much time to reflect, let's do that with the no's and the yeses and try to find meaning in all the chaos. That's all I've been trying to do is through prayer and self-study is reflect.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you, too, for discussion. So if you want to join the discussion next week, we have room for more people to fit here with us. So if you want to be with us in person and join the discussion, think about it, and you can just give me an email or something. And we still have some room available for more people to join. So be thinking about it.